Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay.
2 mics you've got?
I've got 2 mics, yes, thank you. All right, so thank you for coming back from break on time and for coming today. It's been a really interesting session so far, so I hope that this session also will be an interesting hour for you. We're looking at team building stages and activities. My remit here for when I was asked to become involved with this is to talk about team building and maybe get some people doing some activities. So that's my goal for the next hour. There will be something about team building and there will be some activities. So it will be an interactive hour. The takeaway objectives for this next hour, we'll talk about stages of a team. We will talk about the qualities of an effective team, how they differ from a work group, and driving a team forward. Many of you are team leaders or team supervisors or team managers. For the purposes of this hour, I'm not going to make a distinction between team manager, team leader, team captain, team supervisor. There is a difference. However, within an hour, we don't have time to go into that. So I will use those terms interchangeably. And as I said, we will also look at some activities. So there'll be some fun things to get on with, hopefully. When I was asked to look at this, I decided first of all to see if I could find out what people actually think about teams. So I looked at some acronyms, and I found various ideas and various attitudes about out there. I found this one, which I thought was interesting for financial people, time, energy and money. Didn't sound particularly positive, however, is one attitude. I found this one, terrible, enraged, awful and messy, which I kind of assume was a Thursday afternoon feeling. I found this one, teaching, educating and mentoring, which obviously I had to like, but I preferred this one, training, education, advancement and mentoring. So various different thoughts of team that are out there. Who's familiar with this one? Together everyone achieves more? Let's go for miracles. If we're going to aim, we might as well aim high. So I found that one, which I really, really did like. But is it really true? Team is a buzzword at the moment. There's a lot of focus on teams, there's a lot of talk about teams. Is it really worth spending our time, our energy, our focus on teams? When we look at teamwork, I found some statistics about it because I thought that you might appreciate that for some analysis. When we looked at teamwork, 97% of those involved in a particular McKinsey report believe that lack of alignment impacts the success of a task or project. So without teamwork, they believe that the project will fail. When it comes to teamwork, 54% of employees said that great community has kept them at a company for longer than was actually good for them. So because they liked the people, because they liked the goals, because they liked the celebration of milestones, all of those things were working well for them, they stayed at the organisation for probably longer than they should have done. 37% of the respondents said it was their main reason for staying within an organisation. So teamwork impacts our success. Within teamwork, there's communication. Almost all of the people surveyed felt that open communication, where goals, issues, any matters coming up were discussed openly and freely within the team, was what they wanted. However, less than 50% of them said it was what they got. So communication is an area that needed more work from many of the organisations. Failures, most people felt that failures of a project were down to lack of communication. Organisations that were good at communication were more likely to retain the best staff, up to 4.5 times more likely to retain the best staff. This is not just the bodies on the seats, this is the productive bodies. These are the ones that we really want to keep on board. And they're more likely to have a low turnover. So communication, teamwork, yes, it does matter. Yes, it is worth looking at. Okay, you should have on your tables now some laminated words. I'd like you to organise those words, please. You've got different ones on your table. If you're one person on a table, you might like to join one of the other tables. I'm going to give you just a minute to, in fact, I'll give you 2 minutes to organise the words, please. For the blue people, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. All right, who had a pink? Did anybody put the pink one together? Complete a pink? You completed it, what did you come up with? Say it again.
No, give me a minute.
I think you got that one right. The strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. Okay, and that was a Phil Jackson. Quotation. Who's a sports coach. So, anybody else get anything? Anything else? If there was anything else, it wasn't quite correct. Okay, so well done for those who got that one. Right. So teams, let's, in true training fashion, let's have a look at defining a team. There's a really popular definition which says that a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance goals, and a common approach to which they hold themselves mutually accountable. So what that basically says is a team is a group of people, a small group of people that are able to do diverse things in order to move forward to a common goal that they are committed to. How small is small? If it says a team is a small number of people, what's a good size for a team? 6 or 7? Any other thoughts? Say it again. 2 and above is a team? What do you think to that one? When it comes to teams, often the magic number is quoted as about 7. So whoever said 6 or 7, about 7. If you have fewer than that, then possibly you haven't got the diverse skill sets or the competencies that you need to get the goal done. If you have significantly more than that number, then you probably have groups peeling off. It's the same if you invite a big group of people for dinner, you'll have small sets of conversations going on. They might not be saying bad things about each other. They might be, everybody's goal is to be there to enjoy themselves, to have a good time together, but they're doing it in different ways. So about 7 gives you the range of skill sets, the range of ideas to move forward. What about divisions? How big can divisions go? Because if we look at your organisations, you are not organisations of 7 people. How big can we go? Any thoughts? There's been a study and it showed that about 150 is the big magic number. So even if you're working in a division where you've got lots of smaller teams, when it gets to be beyond that, it starts to be getting a bit out of hand. There's an Australian travel company that when they build their divisional offices, they build them with 150 car park spaces, so that when the car park starts to get a bit crowded, they realise they need to do some reorganising or some restructuring somehow. So there is a size for teams. A team doesn't just happen because you happen to have 7 people there. Teams, effective teams, have different characteristics, they have different habits, they have different goals and aims, and they go through a process. So sometimes we're actually a work group. We know what the goal is, we all know what our role is, but we're not necessarily doing it together. It's not a collaborative effort. We're each giving our own efforts in there and making our own attempts. But it's not a team, it's a work group. So these two are very different. Okay. When you look at a team, a work group, to become a team, has gone through a particular process. There are all sorts of models of team development, and possibly one of the most better known is by Tuckman. The 4 stages of team: forming, storming, norming, performing. Who's familiar with that one? A couple of hands have gone up. He then added a 5th one, which was adjourning, which talks about after the team has succeeded and they are now moving onwards. However, we'll focus on the how to build the team with the first 4 stages. Tuckman said that the forming, storming, norming and performing was a linear process that teams went through. But it's since been determined that teams can go backwards and forwards. So if you have a new person come to the team, or significant people leaving the team might go backwards and forwards through the process. So you might need to start to reform. Okay. However, what we'll do is we'll look at Tuckman's model for the sake of for today's session. At the forming stage, this is when people first come together. It's a very polite stage. People are very courteous to each other. They don't know each other well enough to say anything out of order. We hear I and not we. At the forming stage, people are not really clear about what their goals are, or what the goals of the team are, what their roles are within that team. It's all very formal. As the team leader, therefore, have you seen any forming teams within the last 10 minutes? That's what you were going through with this, with putting the words together. Nobody stopped me and said, organise it how. It was all it was a vague instruction deliberately, but there was a sort of uncertainty. What actually does she want? Okay, and that's how a forming team will feel. They will have that uncertainty of not too sure what they're supposed to be doing or how they're supposed to be doing it. Okay. As the team leader for a forming team, your role is to make sure that the goals are clear and that people's roles within the team are clear. There's a complete lack of clarity at this stage, which means you need to communicate very strongly to let people know what's happening. This is why HR teams put onboarding methods into place, so that when new people join the organisation, they can be onboarded, they can be introduced, they can get to know what's going on, and then they can be productive as quickly as possible. And that also happens within the smaller teams. Okay. When we think about communication, often we think about, what am I going to say? What message do I need to deliver? However, communication is two-way. You need to make sure, as the team leader, that you're listening really carefully to what your team is saying to you, or your new team is saying to you, and what their needs are. Okay. Who here, by a show of hands, who feels that they are strong listeners? I have a challenge for you. I've got most hands up, in fact. Most of you believe that you are strong listeners. Okay, I have a challenge for you. You have paper and pen in front of you. Okay. I would like you to please give yourself a score out of 5 for your listening skills. Okay. 5 is high, 1 is low. All right? Write that score down. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and what I'd like you to do is to write the answers down to those questions. All right, we'll go through them at the end. If you've heard any of the questions before, please don't shout out the answer. Even if you haven't heard them before, don't shout out the answer, okay? Just write the answer down. Clear? That wasn't the first question. First question. First question is, a number of months have 31 days. Others have 30. How many months have 28 days? Please just write your answer down. Okay, write your answer down. Okay. Question number 2. You're the captain of a jet known as the B400C, which leaves Manchester at 8 a.m. with 60 passengers on board. It lands at Heathrow, where 20 people get off and 30 people get on. It carries on to Muscat, where 10 people get off and 6 get on. It then continues to Doha, where half the passengers get off. It carries on to its final destination, Bali, where the remaining passengers leave the plane. How old is the captain? I heard somebody say that, and I'm going to take you up on that. Was that you? Okay. Right. Okay, finance people. I have a maths question for you. I would like you, please, to divide 30 by half and add 10. What's the result? Okay. Question number 4. If there are 3 apples and you take away 2, how many do you have? Oh, if there are 3 apples and you take away 2, how many do you have? And finally, a farmer has 17 sheep and all but 9 die. How many are left? Okay. Can I repeat that last one? A farmer has 17 sheep and all but 9 die. How many are left? Okay. Let's run through the answers. You get 1 point for each correct answer. Okay, so I'm going to trust you to mark your answers fairly. Question number 1. How many days, how many months do they fit in? And are there areas where your team is lacking? Because if there are, those are the areas that you could focus on to develop your team, to make it a better performing team. Okay? The first one was P, the purpose and the values. The purpose of the mission, the goal of the team was clear. People knew why they were there and what they were doing. There was empowerment. The systems were in place to enable them to get their work done in the best possible way. They had access to the resources. They had access to the information. Relationships and communication were positive and supportive. There was celebration of milestones. There was trust within the team. Bless you. Flexibility, so that when goalposts got moved, when things changed, as they do over time, they were flexible enough to cope with it. But under flexibility, Dr. Parisi-Carew said also that the team doesn't just work together. The team can also play together. They enjoy each other's company. They can socialize together. They can have humor together. It's not simply they must be heads down working all the time in order to be effective. There was that flexibility in the approach. Optimal productivity wasn't just about doing a job, it was about doing a great job. It was about taking pride in the results. Recognition and appreciation. They recognized each other. They were more than willing to say to each other, well done, good job. Okay. And the morale of the team was subsequently very high. It was a good, fun place to be, where everybody was supportive and aiming at the goals. Okay. If you see that there were gaps in your teams, if there was a gap in communication or empowerment, for example, look at your systems. Are your systems the right systems? Are people being given access where they need access? So this is a way to start to look at where you can strengthen your teams. Okay. When we're looking at strengthening teams and developing teams, there are lots of different ways that you can do that. But activities are one of the ways. Activities aren't the only way, and they're sometimes not the appropriate way. If Steve, it happens to be my brother's name. If anybody here is called Steve, it's not you. If Steve has an attitude problem, don't give him an activity. Give him counselling or give him training. An activity is not what's needed. However, we're here to look at activities today. So when you decide that an activity is the way forward, there are questions that you can ask yourself. Why are you running an activity? What do you want to get from it? What's your goal? What do you want to improve, or what do you want to change? Okay. What outcome are you looking for? Who is going to be involved? Is it just your team? Is it all of your team? Is it some of the support teams or the teams that your team work with? Who is going to be involved? When is it going to happen? Work hours, evening, weekends, and where? If you're holding an activity at work, great. Obviously the cost is going to be lower, but it's very easy to be interrupted at work. So it needs to be a location where you're not going to have interruptions. If it's not going to be at work, then logistically, how are you going to get people there? And what are you going to run? Are you going to run something yourself? You could ask your team for suggestions. You could ask somebody to come in and run it for you. Okay. You also need to be clear on how you're going to, what are you hoping to get out? What is the activity going to tell you? Because sometimes you will just run an activity as a fun activity for your team to have fun together, and that's fine. If that's what your goal is, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so when you're selecting an activity, it needs to cover all of the bases that you need it to cover. Any thoughts at this point? Okay, you will see on your tables, you have been given a bag which contains pieces of spaghetti, piece of string, a piece of tack, and a marshmallow. Okay. Your challenge is to build the tallest marshmallow tower that you can. Okay. Some of you may have seen this before. It's to build the tallest spaghetti marshmallow tower you can. The marshmallow must be supported on top of your structure at the end. If it collapses with the marshmallow, you're done. Okay? Any thoughts? You have 15 minutes to complete the tallest structure that you can. Okay? Your time starts now. Could have shown you leadership, could have shown you communication, fashion, innovation, absolutely. Creativity. We could have looked at, were everybody's ideas heard? If you have a look on YouTube, there's somebody called Tom Wujek, and he ran this it's a very famous activity, but he ran this activity under lots of different scenarios, and he found that the most successful were kindergarten people, kindergartners, because they didn't care. They put the marshmallow on top, if it didn't work, they tried again. The least successful were new graduates, because throughout university they're told, find the solution, make the solution work. They didn't necessarily have a plan B. CEOs were very successful. They were very visionary about what to build, but if they had an executive assistant or PA in the group, they were more successful because they were visionary, and the PAs have often the competency of facilitation, making things happen. So the skill set within the group was important. Thankfully, architects were the most successful, all right? So be aware of what an activity can pull out for you when you start to use it. Yes, it's fun, but it can tell you all sorts of different things. It could have told you attention to detail. Did anybody count the pieces of spaghetti? You all had 21. So it could have, that equally could have told you something. Right. I'm hoping that from this hour you've been able to take away something about the stages of a team, to understand what your team's going through, the qualities of a team that you're needing to develop a high-performing team, driving a team forward, what the leadership styles you need to vary between, and some idea of activities. If anybody's got any questions, we're obviously out of time. You're more than welcome to email me or to contact me by LinkedIn. And if you want any ideas of activities as well, I'm happy to send them out. So thank you for your input. Thank you for participating. Well done.
Thank you so much.